collapse of many of the monarchies in the 20th century was the precursor to today's global framework. It led us to a global framework which is inherently fragile. Think how the collapse of monarchies shaped the current world. That's not to say that some countries with monarchies didn't make some errors of judgment, or that some were tired and in need of restructuring. But the net outcome was that the destruction of the immature German monarchy as a result of the German defeat in World War I led to the rise of Nazism. That in itself began the bipolarization of the world into two camps, each led by strongly anti-monarchical governments, the Soviets, who were created or enabled by World War I, and the United States. The collapse of the Italian monarchy with World War II was also a key design of Stalin, as well as perhaps unconsciously or viscerally of the United States. And as that was happening, my late colleague, the great strategic philosopher Dr. Stefan Tassoni, saw that a perpetuation of this trend would lead to disastrous consequences if it was allowed to continue and to be applied to the Empire of Japan. We'd already seen the chaos which had been caused by the collapse of the Chinese imperial state in 1911. It was Tassoni's strenuous advice which caused US President Harry Truman and General Douglas MacArthur to agree that the Japanese imperial crown should be sustained after the Japanese defeat. The result was that Japan retained its dignity and sense of historical self and didn't fall under the Soviet influence as Stalin sought desperately to achieve. This was the great setback for the USSR at that point, and as a result, Moscow never agreed to end the war with Japan. And post-Soviet Russia still has not been able to fully resolve this situation because of the divergent geopolitical interests which arose from the Soviet occupation at the end of World War II of the Kuril Islands north of Japan. Had Stalin succeeded in turning Japan into a communist or even leftist republic, then the results would have been profoundly tragic for the world, because it would have compounded the effects of the massive Japanese assaults on China, Korea, and Mongolia during the 1930s and through World War II. That gave us a half-century of communism in China and North Korea.